For the last year, I've been covering these two bad boys on my podcast, covering every single episode, and I figure it's about time I rank them. How's it going? I'm Ronnie of the Dancing is Forbidden podcast, a podcast all about the best show ever, Aqua Teen Hunger Force. And if you don't agree, then turn the video off. I don't want to hear what you have to say about it. Like I said, all of 2022, I've been covering season 2 of the show, and it's been great because guess what? Season 2, these two discs right here, or rather box sets, they were my childhood. I grew up watching these religiously over and over and over again, and believe me, these are not my original discs because those box sets were absolutely, utterly fucking destroyed because I was a stupid kid and didn't take care of my shit. But don't worry, I got replacements here. All is well in the world. Season 2 of Aqua Teen, it's my favorite season of any TV show ever. So because of that, while I'm doing this ranking, I decided I would start from my season 1 ranking because guess what? I made this whole video ranking just season 2 and it was boring because season 2 is great. So I thought it would be more fun, more engaging to mix it up here and do my season 2 alongside my season 1. If you did not watch my season 1 ranking, you could find that in the description. I don't know how to make it appear. People are like, oh, go to the side, click that. I don't know how to do that. So go in the description. It'll be there. It's on my other YouTube channel. Go check that out if you want to see how I came to this conclusion. And yeah, we will be adding to it. And as last time, this is my opinion. I'm not saying these are the best episodes. I'm not saying that these episodes are perfect, but this is how I see it. So the next thing I got to say is alongside that, if I go to make this list tomorrow, maybe it would be different, you know, whatever. Who cares? It don't matter. None of this matters. What does matter is ranking these episodes. Let's jump into it. So first of all, we got our trusty Wheel of Names right here. Thank you, wheelofnames.com. Let's click on the wheel and see what happens. So, of course, we've got 24 episodes this season. Quite the task. What does it want to give us first? First, we've got Universal Remonster, our Plutonians showing up again. It's really a Plutonian episode here. And interesting thing about season 2 is we didn't really get a Moonanite episode, considering the first season we got 2 Moonanite episodes, and then in season 3 we get quite a few as well, and going forward. Not the case in season 2, kind of interesting. Of course, we have cameos from the Moonanites, and the last one, you could say, is a Moonanite episode in a way, but it features 1,000 other villains as well. But we did get like a proper Plutonian episode, which I'm happy about because I, as you know, I'm hashtag Team Plutonian, so that works for me. Not to say I dislike the Moonanites here. As you can see, they ranked quite highly in season 1. In season 2 here, I'm going to add our first season 2 episode to the mix. Where does this bad boy land? This one I really liked. It's not one of my favorite episodes. I need to reserve the S tier for my top tier favorite episodes rather than just episodes I think are really, really, really good. So this one, I'm going to move it all the way up here. I think it's actually a high A tier, especially compared again to season 1. And as this goes on, maybe I will move stuff around. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, man, I mean, it's just fun to see Shake interacting with the Universal Remonster. That part is good. But there's 2 things I love about this episode. First of all, of course, the Plutonians. I already said it. I'm hashtag Team Plutonian. What do you expect? I'm living that Plut life. Oh, what can I do about it? But more so, one of my favorite things about Aqua Teen is the in-universe shows, and we get a lot of those there. You know, in season 1, we got them from time to time. Season 2, we didn't really get as much off the top of my head, but in this episode, we get a ton of them, and it's so fun. You know, we got the bowling show, the horror show, the romance show that we get. We get all sorts of stuff. You know, this is your left, that's your left. Just classic Aqua Teen moment. You can't go wrong with Universal Remonster. Back to the Plutonians, I just love their whole shtick about the, you know, spring break, Cancun. We've got the Powerpuff Girl in the wheelchair and the mohawk, the Fargate. It's just craziness. And the thing I like about the Plutonians, to restate this over the Moonanites, in case you're wondering, is that the brand of Plutonian humor is more up my alley. I like they're nonsense, really. They're fucking idiots. They're always arguing with each other. It's very fun. I like their personalities. While the Moonanites, they're more in your face. They're more aggressive, which is fun too. It's great as well. But Plutonians, a little bit more my speed. So I'm going to keep that there and roll her again and see what we get. Now you can see the Plutonians rank quite... Oh, that's not a Plutonian. There's the Plutonians. They rank quite highly in my Aqua Teen Hunger Force ranking here. So we have the cloning. This one's real fresh in the mind. The cloning covering this episode I thought it would just be all right. I'm like, yeah, you know, off the top of my head, cloning is fine, whatever. While rewatching it, like half the episode is so quotable. It's one of the, like, there's so many classic Aqua Teen quotes in the cloning that I didn't even realize. But also we get these fun in-universe shows, but in a different way because they are created by the TV with the Aqua Teens in it. You have Meatwad reacting to it, to me, is the best part of the episode. So the cloning, I think I go high A tier with it. I can't say it's S tier because it's not one of my favorite episodes, but it is a really great episode. I think I'm going to put it right here, safely behind Universal Remonster and in front of Dumber Dolls. Just two great episodes here, and this ain't a bad spot to be. The cloning, you can't be mad about it. Plus, we get that whole footage aspect. You can see Matt and Dave working on this episode, which adds so much to it. It's fun to see what ideas they toyed around with, where some of the things spawned from. So you can't go wrong with the cloning. It's just such a good time and very, very, very highly quotable episode. So next up, we have The Dressing, and this is a sequel episode. I mean, I guess you could say Universal Remonster is as well, but this is the first time we see Cybernetic Ghost come back. But there's an asterisk there, because is it Cybernetic Ghost? The end of the episode suggests it's not. Turkatron objectively has Cybernetic Ghost memories in its head, and it's a wild ride. And I love the way that they bring this character back, not only in a new form, because we'll get into later, that doesn't always save an episode for me, but I like how they used him in terms of he gets shit-faced halfway through the episode. He's like an angry drunk. He's picking fights with the Aqua Teens. It's new, it's funny. In fact, I dare say I like this one more than the OG appearance. I think I really do. It's such a fun episode, you know. The whole, just from the beginning, you have Meatwad trying to invite Carl to Thanksgiving. Turns out it's like a week after Thanksgiving. It's just nuts. And, you know, I think that's a good spot there. I genuinely think I like this one a little bit more, just barely, just like a pubic hair thickness more than Cybernetic Ghost proper. So let's spin the wheel again and see what happens. And again, you got Matt Malero voicing Cybernetic, or Turkatron rather, as a drunk too. Is just really, really funny. So, ooh, it's right in the line. Okay, so Meat Zone. That was really close. I wasn't sure what that was going to be. Meat Zone is a really good episode. Not one of my favorites. Where do I put this one? This one is not fresh in the mind. I wish I had watched this one recently, but I know that I really did like this one based on my rating of it in the podcast. I think I'm going to put Meat Zone. So I say it's not fresh in the mind, but I did watch this like 1,000 times growing up. And like Butt Frenzy is such a funny part of Aqua Teen. Shake's looking at that magazine in Frylock's room. I think this has to be an A tier episode. It's always fun to see Meatwad get these powers. In this one, it doesn't really go to his head the same way it does in a lot of episodes, which is interesting. Yeah, it's an A tier episode. In fact, I think I'm gonna put it here, and then I think I'm gonna bump down. Nah, this one, Revenge of the Mooninites, needs to stay A tier. I can't do that one dirty and move it down, so I think I keep it there. But yeah, there's like a lot of fun art in that one when Meatwad's getting his visions. I like to see them try and cross the road together. Is very fun. The chocolate milk is bad. Don't drink it. Fun stuff. I'll keep it there. Superhero. And I know I'm kind of going quickly through this. We have 24 episodes, so I don't want to drag this out. Superhero, actually, growing up, I had really fond memories of this one. But when I went to watch it back for the podcast, I wasn't that into this one. I found it really one note. The way that Shake is like going back and forth between denying that he's the Drizzle, but acknowledging he's the Drizzle, to me, slowed the episode down in a way that I love the premise. It's like the idea of the episode is funny, but the execution for me is where things got a little muddied. So I think I'm gonna put that in C tier, honestly, but above Rabot. I would rather watch that over Rabot, I think. But again, it's just like an execution thing for me personally. It just feels like it drags. I love Shake, but I find that when episodes are Shake centric, they really run the risk of being just kind of one note in a way that I don't enjoy as much. So I'll put it in C tier, but you know, it's a good time. You've got the Drizzle phone that only has the button on it. Meatwad, he wants to play along. He wants to be Mr. Mister. It's fun. This is like really when they start to introduce body horror, which is an element that we see a lot throughout the season and throughout Aqua Teen as a whole. Really starts in this episode in a big way, because we see Shake just really start to melt down as the episode goes on. So it's an important episode. They really play around with that more than they did in season 1. But, you know, when it comes to watching an episode, I feel like the whole Shake denying he's the Drizzle gets in the way of potential jokes. So Super Bowl. This one I loved a lot as a kid. It was probably one of my favorites as a kid, but watching back now, I liked it a lot. You know, we get the introduction of Boxy Brown, one of my favorite characters. He's so funny, but I don't think that this gets the S tier treatment. In fact, I don't even know that it gets the A tier treatment. I think it gets the high B tier treatment. I'm actually really happy about this placement of it. I would for sure watch it more than these. And that's what I'm thinking about when I'm placing these. Of course, if you watched my season 1 ranking, you'll know, like, I'm trying to figure out, like, yeah, I would rather watch Super Bowl over Infection, but I'd probably want to watch this. I'd want to watch Revenge of the Mooninites over Super Bowl. So I think I'm kind of happy with that. You know, we get Boxy Brown, we get Angela Ditos, Meatwad. The power goes to his head with the Super Bowl tickets. He becomes kind of a dick in a way that we see that. You know, I like when they do that. Next up, we have Super Spore. And this episode, fun. We get some good quotes in this one. Where does Super Bowl or Super Spore sit? I'm seeing what I gave it on the podcast right now. It's another solid episode, not like a top tier favorite of mine, but very quotable, very funny. I like to see Travis of the Cosmos. The name Travis of the Cosmos is just so funny here. And I'm now realizing right now in real time a connection I'd never made until this exact moment, and that is in the Aquadonk side piece, Moonmaster 9, Beware the Gorgatron. And that one, the streamer name was Samuel of the Cosmos. And I'm just realizing now we have Travis of the Cosmos almost 20 years earlier. So you can really see Matt and Dave holding on to that naming convention there. That's kind of funny. But anyways, the episode itself, I feel like the pacing is really fun. It is good. We get the introduction of the Aqua Teens having a table, which comes back many more times throughout the season. Solid episode. Where does it go? I'm not exactly sure. I think I'm going to put it high B tier, and I'm happy about that too. I think I like this one more than Super Bowl, but it's not like an amazing episode, but it's a very, very good episode. Again, all of this ranking is in terms of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, in terms of the episodes that I'm ranking. As we go on with this, as I cover more seasons, these will probably move up a bit. And if you were to compare these to any other show, these would all be like S and A tier, and everything else would not be as high. So again, this is all relative. B tier, high B tier. I'm happy with that. Let's roll her again and see what we get here. This shot I use in the thumbnail here is like such a weird angle of the room. It's just a weird shot. And yeah, Jay Edwards kind of touched on this too, how they tried to do these shots and they just looked weird. Supermodel. Okay. And having said that about Jay Edwards said, I had Jay Edwards on the podcast, producer, editor on Aqua Teen. I've also had Dave Willis, Matt Malero, MC Chris on the podcast. I've chatted a few times with like Dana Snyder. He gives me information for the podcast. I'm sure he'll come on at some point. I haven't asked him yet. I don't know what to ask these actors. That's the thing. I'm not really actorly minded, but we'll get there eventually on the podcast. Don't you worry. So what was that? I fucking blabbered and forgot. Supermodel. This is a fun episode. I like the way that Meatwad is the villain in this one. We don't get that a lot, especially in these earlier seasons, but Meatwad is a real fucking bastard in this one because, you know, I mean, to his credit, you know, for example, in PDA, Shake, he almost killed Meatwad looking for his PDA. So I can't say I blame Meatwad for acting this way, but yeah, in this one, Meatwad really driving Shake to just, again, to the body horror elements and really driving Shake to just mutilate himself. And the end of the episode is pretty dark. You have Shake just laying there, his body's all fucked up and disgusting looking. A dark episode, but a fun one. It's fun to watch that cycle of Shake just getting progressively more and more grotesque. These little hands sticking off his side here. I think this one can go... I think this one stays B tier because the concept of the episode is funny, but to me, like maybe some things would be lost in the execution. I think this one goes here. I think that's a good spot for it. I would rather watch this over Infection, but I would rather watch Super Bowl over Supermodel, I think. But a good episode. Like, honestly, if I'm being honest with you, S, A, B tier, like all three of these tiers, like there's really nothing wrong with these episodes in my mind. I just have to get super hypercritical and nitpicky about them. It's when we get to C and D that I could start really pointing out flaws in a more negative way. So let's roll again. For example, like there's some flaws in these that I know off the top of my head, but like they don't really detract too much from the episode. Moving on, we have Frat Aliens. I'm seeing a very fun one. Patton Oswalt playing two characters, and these characters come back quite a bit throughout the show. A fun time. We get to see Matt and Dave's disdain of the typical frat bro, but still not one of my favorites. I believe this one kicks off. It's like, I want to say it's the first one on the Volume 3 DVD. which is interesting because I really wonder how they decided the order of these episodes. But regardless, yeah, it does. Yeah, on the back there it says you probably can't read this, but it says 1 Frat Aliens, even though it's like towards the end of the show's run. But yeah, so I've seen this one a lot, but I never really liked this. Not to say I didn't like it. I didn't love this one, I should say, as much as I really should, because it is a tight episode. It's a very good episode, but not one of my favorites. So I think hanging out around B tier is good. I think I want to move it here. I think this one could sit nicely behind Super Bowl. Just maybe it's just like the villains I'm not super into. They are very funny, and there's a lot of good things about them. Again, it's a good episode. It's a B tier episode. That's not bad. It just was never one of my favorites for whatever reason, but it's fun seeing them like hit on the Aqua Teens, pretend like they're girls, is very funny to me. So that's a good time. But I see we're landing on Revenge of the Trees. Revenge of the Trees, a very, very, very good episode in my mind. If I could find it here it is. So I like the beginning. Starts off very strong, Revenge of the Trees, because we have Carl. He's going to hang out with the Aqua Teens. They're gonna have a Labor Day, and then he sees that they're cooking tofu. He turns around, but then Shake's like, wait a second, no, I have a different plan. They're gonna deep fry this whole cow that's got, it was fed cheese and stuff till it died or whatever is going on with that. And then of course Carl ends up getting fucked over after they dump the oil in the woods. And if you have these villains played by Dave Willis and Matt Malero, so instantly I love their personalities. They're very funny. I love the way that these trees play off each other. We also get a few other trees too throughout the episode, and it's just fun watching them deal with it. And that's the heart of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, is these characters not actually dealing with problems. They just find the easiest way to get out of whatever their issue is. So that's exactly what happens here. And because of that, I really, really do like this episode. I think it's actually, I'm going to give it S tier because I just like the episode from start to finish. It's just very, very funny. So S tier, I'm going to keep it here though. Just like the whole concept of them hanging out and deep frying a cow and everything is so funny. And if you've seen videos of people deep frying turkeys and the fucking thing explodes and they set their house on fire and stuff, it actually doesn't go that badly until they dump the oil. And I'm very surprised how strong Carl and Shake are to move that vat of oil, just dragging it into the woods. So let's move on here. We have a lot more episodes to cover. Going forward, the future seasons of Aqua Teen are only 10 episodes each, so a lot easier to rank. This is a 24 episode season. We got a lot to go through. We've got Kidney Car, and I don't think Kidney Car is that highly rated of an episode, but for me, if you listen to the podcast, you know this is my favorite episode of Aqua Teen. It really is. So I have to put it at the top. Like, this could be in its own tier, like S plus or something. Like, and I totally recognize it's not a super popular episode. This isn't even one I would maybe necessarily show somebody for the first time. Well, maybe I would, but it's just the Aqua Teens hanging out, and that's what I've always loved about Aqua Teen, and I'm sure the reason you like it too, is the main characters. The villains are fun. They add a lot to it. Sometimes the villains are legendary. And, like MCP Pants comes back a ton. I like the way that he interacts with the characters. But Kidney Car, man, it's just the characters themselves. And they're not even doing anything that crazy. They're trying to fix up a car. That's not inherently this nutso idea. The way they go about it is crazy because Meatwad, he's trying to use this like baby doll toys. But that's where the humor comes from, is the stupidity of Meatwad and Shake watching them, fuck around while Frylock actually wants to fix this. There's just so much. I just love this episode. And the funny thing is, when I covered this episode on the podcast, I didn't have a whole lot to say about it because it's just funny from top to bottom. It's just hilarious. It just makes me laugh the whole time. And the show, as you know, started with Rabbot, and the first few string of episodes and most of season 1 actually, they had villains. They would bring in villains to keep it fresh or whatever. But in season 2, we got to see Matt and Dave grow more comfortable and confident working on the show, and we just saw the characters just hanging out a ton, and for the most part it worked. And this is an instance of that for me. It's my favorite episode of the show. It's just the characters. They don't need villains to come in here. It's just watching all these characters firing on all cylinders, doing what they do best. And Carl freaks out because his car got destroyed. Meatwad somehow gets a car and he's a dumbass. He wants to fix it up, but he doesn't know how. Shake doesn't care about doing things the right way. He just fucks around. And Frylock, he has to kind of maintain everybody. So it's a good time, as you can tell by how much I said about it. It's my favorite. It always will be. And it's a silly old episode. So next up we have Supercomputer, which was the 4th episode of season 2, but for whatever reason, in the production order at least, it seemed to be the first one. I don't know why it wasn't pushed out first, but we have John Glazer as Oog, and just very, very, very funny. Really, really good time. We get some Ben Prisk illustrations. That's always a treat. And just this character is insane. And the premise of this episode is insane too. Let me check my notes here. Yeah, this is actually the first episode of season 2 that I gave a 5 out of 5. I think this one, you know what? This one, I'm going to put high A tier because I think a criticism you can lob at this one is the beginning is maybe a little slow. It doesn't bother me personally, but I do see that complaint, and I understand why. As opposed to like these ones, I think just from top to bottom are really good. So I'll put that high A tier. It's not nothing to be mad about there. It's still hanging in there. All right, super trivia. We get Seth MacFarlane in this one. And the funny thing is, I didn't know this was Seth MacFarlane until years later. Like as a kid, I loved Family Guy. I loved Seth MacFarlane. And I didn't know that this was him, I don't think. I found this out till I was an adult, which is, I was going to say it's surprising. Is it really surprising? Like, does everybody know every guest voice actor on the show? Anyways, though, yeah, Super Trivia, Seth MacFarlane. We have Frylock. It's kind of a Frylock-centric episode. And it's cool to see Frylock's interests. You know, he wants to win bar bucks at trivia. I don't think to Frylock it's even about the bar dollars. It's not like, oh, we need food, we have to win trivia. It's like he just wants to win. We get to see more of Frylock in this episode. And to me, that's always like welcomed because we don't get to see it a lot. If they did it all the time, maybe I wouldn't care as much, but we don't get to see it. We see it here. It's a good time. We have Ned Hastings making an appearance too. Very great editor, producer on Aqua Teen. And Frylock, he goes to such extremes that he like Ludovico techniques his fucking roommates, and he like basically imprisons them to make them watch these DVDs. So it's a good time. I like this episode. I feel like it's a very solid episode. Great episode. I like how all the characters kind of do their thing in this one. And I think this is an A tier episode. In fact, I think I'm putting it here. I actually really like this one. I really like this one, and I would probably watch it over Dumber Dolls, surprisingly. And Wayne, he's a fun villain too. He doesn't really say much. Like you'll notice in that episode, there's some shots of him just standing there. He doesn't really say a ton, but when he does talk, it's pretty funny. Like he just wants friends ultimately, but he's kind of an asshole douchebag, and he doesn't know how to really go about doing that in a great way. So just like kind of a unique episode. I've always liked it. So next up we have Super Squatter. This one dealing with poverty with the teens, and I talk about this, you know, especially in this episode. I've mentioned in the podcast a lot that I grew up poor. You know, we grew up with the electricity being shut off and such. So seeing a television show episode about that really meant a lot to me as a kid, and just the way that they deal with it is funny. That, you know, like they kind of try to make the best of it, but it kind of deals with, on a deeper level, Meatwad being like the child of the family, having to deal with like Shake's decisions, having to deal with his caretaker's decisions to let him be in the situation. So I like that. It's kind of like deeper than you would expect it to be. Did they intend that? I don't know. Probably not, but it is interesting to kind of look at it that way. So because of that, like this episode just really always meant a lot to me. So I'm going to put it in S tier. I think I'll move it here, honestly. Like just watching Meatwad like deal with his whole weenie smoothie situation is hilarious. I actually really, really enjoy that. So let's roll again. But yeah, this episode, you know, Shake, he's like, at least we have electricity, and then I get shut off. He's like, at least we have each other. But Shake doesn't give a fuck. You know, he just goes to Carl's house, causes Carl some problems. Frylock's a dummy for ever thinking Shake would do anything about this. Okay, so Super Sirloin. This is a fun one to talk about because MCP Pants was my favorite episode of season 1. MCP Pants is my favorite villain on Aqua Teen. I wish they used him more, quite honestly, than they did. Growing up, always liked Super Sirloin. As an episode, I think it's solid. However, as a sequel, I actually found it to not be that good. I was actually surprised how much of a copycat it was from the MCP Pants episode. So let's look at the first instance of villains coming back, and that is the Moonanites. We have Mayhem of the Moonanites and then Revenge of the Moonanites. And I feel like Revenge of the Moonanites, rather, as a sequel episode is very good because they have the Moonanites come, and it's a little similar to the first one, but it's different in a lot of ways. Let's talk about Turkatron. You know, it's cybernetic ghosts coming back, but in like this different way. And it's very, very interesting. They just do it in a new way. Same with the Plutonians coming back. It's not just the Plutonians coming back trying to abduct the guys to kill them every single time. They always come back with a different MO every single time. This episode is basically a carbon copy of the first one, but without the elements that I liked so much about the first one. So the first one, we have, Carl and Meatwad hanging out. I thought that was so funny, but Carl's not really in the second one. The upside to that is we get a full 60 seconds more of MC Pants and, MC Chris, which is good. Like, the jokes in the episode are funny, but as a sequel, I have to say, I kind of like wish they did something else with it, because it's really just very, very similar to the first one. They have to eat candy and then show up to MC Pants so he can use them for something. This one, they have to collect food and send it into MC Pants so he can use it for something. It's very similar, and they did rectify this every time the MC Pants came back since. So like Little Brittle, I love that episode because they're just doing something totally different with it. So yeah, this one, I wasn't super crazy about it on a rewatch. It's a good episode. Like, there's lots of good dialogue in it, but I kind of have to like put some things lower. So I think I'm gonna put this one in high C tier, but it's funny. It's MC Pants. Like, you can't go wrong with it, but that's just my complaint, I guess, that I'm holding on to. All right, the last one. This is a difficult one to talk about. I'm not going to lie. There's kind of like an asterisk after this episode because it's such a different episode than everything else that we've gotten up to this point, because it's not really about the Aqua Teens. It's about the villains. And it's like the coolest thing because they bring back a bunch of these villains that we love. Moon and Knights didn't really get an episode this season, but they kind of lead this episode. But we have, Cybernetic Ghost, Moth Monster. You just see all these villains coming together and interacting, which is the coolest thing. And to me, it's kind of sad that they didn't do this more. I would have loved to. They could have easily wrapped up every season with an episode like this, honestly. I don't think anybody, myself included, would complain because there's just so much opportunity for fun interactions there. But at least we got this episode. At least they did it once. I'm very thankful for that. Seeing all these villains come together, and a typical episode of Aqua Teen, we see the Aqua Teens and then a villain shows up. That's typically how it goes. But in this episode, we follow the villains, and then the episode basically ends with them showing up at the Aqua Teens house, but their plan falls apart. And I don't know how you could really hate this one. In this podcast episode, I went back and I read some forum threads from 2003, or rather, this came out New Year's Eve 2003, so really January of 2004. And there was one guy who really did not like this one because it wasn't like, oh, the villains didn't do anything. But to me, that's funny. If they did anything, I would be angry because these villains are also inept that they actually can't. Like, would you expect them to be successful? No. So just a really great episode. It's like a special episode. It's hard to even rank it amongst these because it's so different. And I don't know, man. Because of that, like, I genuinely don't know where to put this one, but I have to put it somewhere. A tier for sure. This is easily an A tier episode. I just don't know like where. I think here is good. It's just it's hard. Like, don't read too much into where I'm putting this because it's such a unique episode. And this is some people's favorite episode, and I understand why, because it's just such a love letter to the show itself. That's the best I could do. We have the clowning. The clowning is one that like I didn't think I would like as much going back to watch it. But I actually really was impressed with this one, not only with like the nonstop jokes in it the entire time. It's very funny to see this body horror transformation of Carl and how that affects everyone and how they have to try and deal with this. But really what I think is most memorable about this one is the fact that we get a lot of like interesting lore things that they don't expand upon in a cool way. So we see like the floating clown head, I think his name is Bingo, and then we see that styrofoam head. And it's not really explained like who they are, what they are, which fair enough. Aqua Teen is like that, but they allude to somebody named like Sparkles. I can't exactly remember. It's like Sparkles or Sprinkles or something. Some other character we never actually see, but they talk about him and he's kind of like feared amongst them. He seems to be the boss that's orchestrating this whole thing. And it's so cool because they don't really address this at all. But if you want to dig into it, there's something there. And it's really, really interesting. But of course, the episode itself is very funny. It's funny to watch Carl turn, and of course the whole scene with him and his girlfriend. He's doing the air guitar, shaking his hair around, and she's like totally into it. It's such a fun episode. So I think I have to put this one S tier. This is like one of my favorite episodes. So it's kind of like where in S tier does it go? I think I'm gonna put it here. I think it's not only is it a strong episode, but there's just so much going on in it that we could talk about that I think it makes it really, really cool. Because a lot of, even like my favorite episode, there's not a whole lot to dig into with Kidney Car, but there's a lot to dig into with the clowning. So as a viewer of Aqua Teen, I like this one a lot, but also as like a podcaster, I loved making the episode about this one. And of course, I get into how the voice actress for Carl's girlfriend, she basically is the reason Aqua Teen exists. So, check that podcast episode out. The Broodwich, this is just like one of those great classic Aqua Teen episodes. There's no, this has to be S tier. There's nowhere else I could put it S tier, other than S tier. Now, the real question is, where does it go? We'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about Broodwich a little bit. I love how this is like a darker episode, and there are some really unsettling moments in this one that you might not expect from an Aqua Teen episode, particularly the scene where Shake, he's sitting in the living room. The Broodwich is taped to the ceiling, and there's like kind of this droning effect. Shake's just like, oh, I don't need it. And there's like what sounds like porn on the TV. There's just like all these elements coming together that just make it so bizarre and strange in a really cool and effective way. But beyond that, it's the episode is fucking just batshit insane. It's hilarious. You have Mr. Sticks, Dennis here. You have the whole Mary triple Xmas idea is very funny. Meatwad kind of lying about how the other dimension was good. The beginning too is great too. This just Meatwad's yelling at Shake to pick up his mess in the hallway, which is so funny to me. So, I mean, I think this is like one of the highest rated episodes of the show. It might even be behind Ham Banana. I know Ham Banana is like on IMDb the highest rated. But okay, so where does it go here? It goes really, like, I can't even pretend. It goes high. I think I put it honestly here. It's just like, this is like a go-to episode. You can show somebody this their first time watching Aqua Teen. I think it'd go over well, although it would give the impression the show is darker than it normally is, because it's not always this dark. The ending is very nihilistic. It's kind of like no matter what Shake did, like regardless, he's ending up getting killed, which is, if you want to ponder on that, it's kind of dark. But yeah, it's a good time. I love that episode so much, and I'm assuming you do too, because who doesn't like Broodwich, man? It's just a great episode. All right, so we get the episode and this is one that I thought when I went in to make the podcast episode about it that I really loved this episode, but then upon watching it, I was actually like underwhelmed by it a bit. So let me explain myself, because I love the premise of the episode, which is Frylock moves out. Like, that's such a brilliant idea, and I love seeing him try and build his own life, try and make buddies, which fails miserably, which is great. The thing I don't like is this episode has way too much setup. I feel like a lot of the stuff at the beginning is not necessary. They do the whole Meatwad exploding himself multiple times joke like over and over again. To me, is not super funny. It's like I wish they would have started the episode with Frylock just saying, that's it, I'm moving out, and we see the house is a mess, and we would understand as the viewer like why he's moving out. Like, Shake's a fucking animal, right? So it makes sense. But there's like I feel like they tried to explain why Frylock had to move out, which really I felt like was unnecessary. But the cool thing about this episode is that it shows us why the Aqua Teens need Frylock, because without him, Carl almost dies. Shake and Meatwad just get completely fucked up. But it also shows why Aqua Teen Hunger Force, the television show, needs Frylock, because without Frylock, it just devolves into nonsense, into Dadaism that is like, for me, it's a little too absurd, and there's not really anything for me to grab onto without Frylock there in terms of like keeping things somewhat coherent. Obviously, Aqua Teen isn't like particularly a coherent show all the time, but Frylock brings that groundedness to it that you can literally see when he leaves the house, everything just goes to shit. So it's an interesting episode in that regard. I love the Jay Edwards cameo, is very funny. Ned Hastings has a small cameo in it, a voice cameo where he blows off Frylock. That whole, I just like love all that aspect of it. But the execution to me was not the best, and I say that as somebody who essentially studies this show and knows what everybody here is capable of. I would have liked to see them really just focus on Frylock here, but it is what it is. It's still a decent episode, but I think I'm gonna leave it in C tier, and I think I might even leave it below Super Sirloin. Yeah, I just felt like it was just too much setup overall. They could have just started it with Frylock moving out and went on from there. But we get the Moonanites pop in. It's fun seeing Frylock's disappointment as nobody wants to come to his party. But yeah, that's just kind of my nitpicking on it. I just wish that it was a little bit faster in the beginning. I think it's like 4 minutes of setup in an 11-minute, not even 11, like 9-minute show. Okay, so we have the shaving up next. The shaving, this one, I knew it was good going into it, and it was as good as I knew it would be. The shaving is a great episode. I'm putting it here. I'm putting it here, actually. I really like Willie Nelson as a character played by Tom Sharpling. I wish they brought him back more. I'm disappointed they did not. Just the character is the funniest thing to me, just like his whole attitude. Love seeing Meatwad and Carl hang out. That is like the best part of this episode to me. Then you have Shake. He finally gets a buddy in terms of Willie Nelson here. And the entire episode, you know, Willie Nelson, he's not a scary monster. He seems like one of the most reasonable people on Aqua Teen. But then at the end, you see he's not. He is a monster, and it's almost shocking. We don't see anything that graphic in the show up till that point. It's probably one of the most graphic things we see on the show, like in total, honestly. And it's so beautiful visually. I mean, it's horrifying, but you see like these disemboweled bodies swinging in the attic. You see the light is dynamic, moving with the swinging body and everything, and it's just like really crazy visually. My Meatwad fell down. He's okay, don't worry about it. I guess that was Meatwad's way of telling me what I was saying was boring. No, oh, Shake fell down too. So overall, great, like every level, the voice acting, the writing, the animation, even in a show that's typically so limited. The effects are just so great. Great episode. Show this to anybody their first time getting introduced to Aqua Teen. I think it'll go over well. Again, disappointed they didn't bring the character back. They brought him back visually, but they never had Tom Sharpling voice him again, which is a bummer. So next up, Spirit Journey Formation Anniversary. A very, 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 very special episode to me because growing up, I knew who they were referencing and alluding to in this episode. I knew who Zakk Wylde was. I grew up loving Ozzy. I knew who Rush was because I grew up, you know, my mom would listen to Rush and stuff. So as a kid, I knew what this was like hinting at. I knew like what they were kind of making fun of here, and you know, I knew who these people were. So if you don't know who they are, then maybe the episode isn't as great, but I feel like anybody could still follow along with the episode. And the whole premise of this new birthday song is great. And top to bottom, this episode is fucking wild. I love this one. A little pun there for you, I guess. I love this one. I love seeing Shake hiding from Zakk Wylde and stuff like that, and trying to put this concert together, which is a complete shit show. I love this episode. In fact, I have to put it like really high up. I feel like the song Spirit Journey Formation Anniversary is just one of the best, you know, Aqua Teen fandom jokes that we have. Yeah, I love this episode so much. I don't even know where to put this one. Definitely above Circus. These three are maybe interchangeable with Broodwich. I really love this episode. It's so funny to me. Just like top to bottom, it's great. So I don't know what else to say about it. All right, we've got Super Birthday Snake. This is Carrie Means' favorite episode because it's a Frylock centric episode. In fact, it's like one of the first, if not the first Frylock episode, which is really cool. Kind of sad that, you know, this has to take place in a simulation within a simulation for that to happen. But yeah, Carrie, it's his favorite because he gets to show his range a little bit more than just Shake, don't do that. You know, we get to see Frylock as a bad boy here. And again, it's a simulation, but also the whole bit with the birthday snake is funny. Seeing drunk Meatwad there is great. Shake reacting to that. It's just top to bottom. It's a fun episode. It goes on some fun twists and turns towards the end. Just really like this one. And I understand why it's Carrie's favorite. I wish that he got to illustrate more of his range on the show than just like these few instances. Where does it go? I feel like I do have a lot of sentimental value with this one. It's not an S tier for me, but it is an A tier. Because of that sentimental value. Plus, it's just, again, fun to see Frylock in that different role than we're used to. Yeah, I think I put this one over Revenge of the Mooninites. I think that's a good pick for it. Fun episode, but of course none of it actually happened because it was all a bunch of simulations. So we have Total Recarl, and my history with this episode is that for a period as a kid, this actually was my favorite episode of Aqua Teen, but then one day I realized I liked Kidney Car more. So because of that, I think I'm putting this one in second place. And this is another one of those, you know, Aqua Teens just hanging out kind of episode. No real villain here. Maybe Frylock because he's the reason that Carl got killed. But yeah, they don't need a conventional villain here. It's just fun to watch them try and put Carl together. A great moment, one of my defining moments growing up. I remember sitting there with my DVD remote, trying to pause exactly because they say, oh, Carl's dropping F-bombs on the screen. For a split second, we see Carl's computer, Frylock's computer, and you could see there's some text there, and I eventually did get to pause it on that split second, and there were F-bombs on the screen. You did see the word fuck and stuff, so I was like so happy. Like the payoff was immense on that one. So just a fun episode, top to bottom. Like you can't go wrong with some. There's like really no dull moments. Just them trying to watch Carl take a dump is so funny, and then them trying to fix Carl is great as well. So that leaves us our last episode here, the cubing. And this one, not one of my favorites from the season. In fact, one of my least favorites from season 2. I think I go C tier with this one. So the cubing, we have it's interesting in that we see the Aqua Teens trying to respectfully and politely deal with people that they don't want to actually interact with, because the dumbass Hedratron is annoying and they don't like that. They don't want to deal with him. But they try to be nice about it. They don't just say, fuck you, I don't want to deal with you. So that's kind of fun. But I feel like a few episodes later with Frat Aliens, it's kind of the same thing. It's like it's a character who their entire negative trait is being annoying. Like the Wisdom Cube and the dumbass Hedratron, they're not really bad. They're just annoying. They just annoy the shit out of the Aqua Teens. Same with Frat Aliens. Frat Aliens don't mean harm. They're just annoying. And I feel like Frat Aliens just kind of did that concept a little bit better. Now in Frat Aliens, they are more blunt with the Frat Aliens. At least, Frylock is. I guess Master Shake likes the Frat Aliens. In this episode, nobody likes the dumbass Hedratron and the Wisdom Cube. So, there's some slight differences, but overall, a little one note of an episode. So I think I put it like, I probably put it here. Yeah, I think I like it here. I'd rather watch Super Sirloin over it, but I'd rather watch this over the. So there we have it. My season 2 alongside my season 1 ranking. I think I like where everything is. Of course, as I go on with the podcast and finish more seasons, luckily the seasons are shorter. Well, I wouldn't say luckily, because as a fan, I want them to be longer. But, we get into, I think the next season is like 13 episodes, and then it's like 10 episodes. After that, a little bit easier to rank in this way. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, check the show notes. You can see the season 1 and this season 1 plus season 2 tier list. You can make your own. Maybe I'll throw in just a season 2 tier list as well if you would like to do just season 2. I'd love to see your ranking on this. And I hope you enjoyed following along. Again, my podcast is called Dancing is Forbidden. You can get it on YouTube. You can get it on any podcast app. Going through the show one episode at a time. We're about to start season 3 of the show, and also interviewing people who are all over the show as well. So if you want to hear what they have to say, check it out. But until then, hey, hope you enjoyed this ranking. It was fun to do, and I look forward to keep on doing it. So until then, take it easy. See you later.